Some people in Africa and the U.S. are optimistic about future relations with Africa under Donald Trump's second term. A strategic shift could counter China and Russia's influence on the continent. To talk more about how a second Trump term might affect U.S.-Africa relations, my colleague Paul Ndiho joins me in the studio with a very special guest.
Thanks, Esther. I'm pleased to have with me today to talk about what we can expect from Africa-U.S. relations, a Trump second term. Ambassador Tibor Nagy served as U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs in the first Donald Trump administration. Welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much, Paul, for having me.
Let me take this opportunity to congratulate you and your former boss on having been re-elected as the President of the United States.
Thanks very much.
So as the former top diplomat for African affairs, what should we expect when it comes to the Trump second term for Africa?
Well, I'm very optimistic. I don't think that people should worry about the slogan, America first, because that does not mean America only. And there are a lot of areas where interests between the U.S. and Africa intersect. As the intro said, China, we very much see as an existential long-term threat. And so I think that we will be a little bit more honest in saying, yes, part of our African relations are about China. Then there are the very important issue of critical minerals. You know, why should China monopolize all the critical minerals in Africa when it would do much better if Western, i.e. American companies were also involved? So I think Africans should be optimistic. I think they will have a lot more deals and a lot fewer lectures.
A quick follow-up to your point. There are a lot of people who say that China, Russia, they are having an edge over the United States in Africa. What can the Trump presidency do better to compete with those two countries? Well,
I think you will agree that what Africans want more than anything else, especially young Africans, and everyone knows that there are millions and millions and millions of young Africans, are jobs. And frankly, yes, China has done an awful lot of infrastructure projects, but how many jobs did the African young people get out of that? I think the truth is that from American and Western type of investment, they do lead to the kind of jobs that young Africans are looking for. And I think that that will be a successful foreign policy, and I think that that will be the true kind of win-win for both sides.
President-elect Trump is proposing a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the United States. Obviously, with AGOA, Africans were supposed to bring goods to the United States free of tariffs. What should we expect?
Well, I think what we should expect to see what actually happens, aside from during campaigns, a lot of things are said, and then what the actual policy is might be a little bit different. I mean, AGOA is a law passed by Congress, and I'm sure that the United States of America will comply with that law. And as you also well know, that law will be going out soon, and everybody's kind of looking forward and wondering what kind of a new AGOA there will be.
You just reminded me of a famous quote from Mario Cuomo, the former governor of New York, who said that when you're campaigning, you campaign in prose, and when you're governing, you govern in poetry. So I like the take. How about the issue of, let's say, the Sahel? We have a crisis in the Sahel. We have wars in Sudan, in DRC. Yeah. How can the Trump administration maybe do better on this front?
The 3 C's, crises, conflicts, and coups, have really been horrible. And again, here, U.S. engagement needs to be different. You know, our lecturing, for example, the military government in Niger, I think had a lot to do with us being kicked out of some very valuable air bases, you know, where we had agreements with. And the whole issue of coups, I think it's important for the United States to look at coups individually. And you know, when a coup happens and we say it's a coup, then we have to cut certain ties and engagements. So what we do is we call some coups coups and other coups not coups, as happened, for example, in Gabon. We didn't call it a coup. So we just need to be a little bit more honest and say we really need to be much more flexible in how we engage with those governments, because often a military government really needs engagement more to kind of help them see the way forward, especially those that are very popular with the people when they happen.
Very briefly, what would you do differently if you get your old job back?
Well, I'm not looking to get my old job back because being assistant secretary once is enough. I would look differently to be a little bit less hypocritical, to drop the megaphone, to engage with African governments where they are, not where we want them to be, and to see the world as it is, and especially put so much more energy into the Sudan, Ethiopia, Sahel, those kinds of conflicts.
Unfortunately, Ambassador, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it.
Yeah, always a pleasure to have you. Ambassador Tibor Nagy served as U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs in the first Donald Trump administration. Back to you, Esther.
Thanks, Paul. That was a very informative interview.